Recording in progress.
Good evening. Welcome to the City Council special meeting this Monday evening, May 19th. I now call this meeting to order. Deputy City Clerk, please call the roll.
Certainly, Mayor Newsom. Councilmember Diaz-Nash.
Here.
Councilmember Spirko-Wadicki.
Here.
Councilmember Fernandez.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Lorraine.
Here.
And Mayor Newsom.
Here. We're excited to be here in person with options for those who choose not to be in person to participate virtually. There are several ways to participate. For those attending in person, please complete a yellow request to speak slip and hand it to the Deputy City Clerk. If participating remotely, use the raise your hand feature in Zoom and you will be called upon at the appropriate time. If calling in via phone, press *9 to raise your hand, and when called upon, press *6 to unmute. These options for public comment will remain available until I close the public comment period for each specific item. First on tonight's agenda is a study session, legislative and grant opportunities briefing study session. We will receive legislative updates from the California State Senator Josh Becker, California State Assembly Member Diane Papan, and San Mateo County Supervisor Noelia Corzo, District 5, as well as briefings from the city's state legislative consultant, California Public Policy Group, and federal legislative consultant, Smith Garson. We will provide feedback and direction to the staff as appropriate, and including potentially taking action to adopt a position on pending legislation. We're honored to be joined this evening by several distinguished presenters who will speak on important legislative topics. With the approval of my fellow council members, due to the demanding schedule of our legislative representatives who may need to drop off the meeting to meet other commitments, I'm proposing for this item, we modify our standard meeting protocols to allow our presenters to deliver their remarks, then receive brief questions or remarks from the council with a goal to keep on schedule. Once all presentations are concluded, we will open up to public comment and provide council with a final opportunity to deliberate. Do we have approval for this? Okay, all five, yes. Thank you, council. With that, we will begin with our first update from state legislative briefing from Senator Josh Becker. Welcome, Senator Becker. Yes, no, not yet.
Mr. Mayor, if the senator is obviously running a few minutes late, he had a busy evening this evening, and he appreciates, I work for him in my day job, and he appreciates your flexibility. We do have Assemblymember Papan here in person. I would ask that we let her present first since she's here.
That sounds great. Assemblymember Papan, welcome.
That your city clerk, I know, is going to ably pull up. It's nice to be here. I miss this room.
Good to see you. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me. What'd you say?
It'll be lovely the next time you come back here.
Okay. Well, as you know, I represent you in the State Assembly. The 21st Assembly District covers from Brisbane all the way to East Palo Alto on the east side of the peninsula, known as the 21st Assembly District. I'll go to the next slide. I am chair of the Water, Parks, and Wildlife Committee. Most of the work we do there deals with water and water's infrastructure throughout the state. I also serve on transportation, utilities and energy, environmental safety and toxic materials, and judiciary. So a lot of bills that, let me just put it this way, a lot of bills come through judiciary. So I see a lot of bills before they get to the floor that may have cover a myriad of topics. My focus has really been on environmental protection, public health, renewable energy, and community engagement. So I'll go to the next slide. Um, uh, Just to kind of give you a flavor of sort of what procedures I go through as it relates to being connected to the district. I have frequent community events across the district, a lot of stakeholder meetings that I hold in my office quite regularly. And I really feel like a lot of the policy I pursue is really shaped by community feedback. Each assembly member represents 500,000 people. So there's a myriad of points of view out there. And I like to think that I spend a lot of time trying to understand what those views are, so that there is a strong connection between my local representation and what we pursue at the state. So that's, an important part of the job, certainly. I'll go to the next slide. And I'd give you just a smattering of some of the things I'm carrying. AB 60 deals with musk and banning musk in certain personal care products. Believe it or not, it is quite toxic, and it's contained in everything from shampoos to soaps. And so that bill is winding its way through the assembly right now. I think it's in a PROPS at this moment, so we'll see what happens with it. AB 360 deals with improving menopause education among medical personnel. As it turns out, you get a pretty limited exposure in medical school to the symptoms of menopause and how to treat menopause, and it can be such an amorphous subject, and it can affect so many different parts of your body. You could keep going to an orthopod because you keep getting a hairline fracture, which really may be related to having a calcium deficiency that's been brought on by menopause, but that might not be the first thing you think about. So AB 360 is really to see where we are with medical providers, how much updating they've had since medical school, and keep it at the forefront of, gee, that might be some area that I need to explore. AB 526 is a plan for geothermal expansion, because without a plan, nothing happens. And since I've been in the legislature, geothermal is something that I've become quite passionate about. We're looking towards renewable energy, but this is one that doesn't relate to the weather. The sun doesn't need to be up. The wind doesn't need to be blowing. It's just based upon the heat from the earth. And so I'm very bullish on it. And nothing, of course, happens without a plan. So this is so that we have a statewide strategic plan as it relates to geothermal expansion. AB 1146, safeguards against politically motivated water. Oh, I call this my anti-Trump bill, because as we know, Trump released water that he said was going to go towards helping fires in Los Angeles. And of course, that water had nothing to do with helping fires in Los Angeles. So I introduced a bill, being chair of water, that said water may not, and it was a very unusual circumstance in that the reservoir was a federal receptacle, if you will, but the water was a California asset. An asset that we will never get back. And so this bill says that you may not release water under false pretenses. And so we'll see where the bill goes. Some of the water people have some concerns, but I think we'll get there, and we'll narrow the language such that we don't need to be a victim, and this doesn't need to happen again. And then AB 650 is with streamlining RENA and allowing, as you all know, allowing cities to start the process earlier, about 6 months earlier. And then it also mandates that HCD be very specific in what your deficiencies are with your housing element submittals, and also very specific about how you can cure them. And I think it's very important, because not only did the city of San Mateo go through this, but I heard up and down my district, and then many of my colleagues have heard in their districts, that they all went through the same process. And yes, there are some bad actors out there, but there's a lot of good actors. They're spending a lot of money we could spend on housing, I might add, trying to comply with HCD and its varying demands. And they, were short-staffed. You'd get a new personnel assigned, the goalpost would move, and on we kept going down the path of, working very diligently to get your housing element approved, but having the ball kind of moved on you. So this really kind of clarifies what should be expected of HCD. And then when we combine that with being able to start 6 months early, it may be that we get the process going a bit earlier and making compliance a little more accessible for local entities. And that should come up I know we went through housing, and we have the chair of housing and then the chair of appropriations have become co-authors on the bill. So we'll see what happens with it. I think it should be very fruitful and hopefully will help cities like San Mateo and other cities in my district and throughout the state in the future. So the next slide. As you probably all heard, the governor's May revise. He does a budget estimate in January, and then they have what they call the May revise, which came out last Wednesday. And it projects now, instead of a slight surplus, which was like 300 million or so, we now are expecting a deficit of about $12 billion, could be as high as 15. So it is a very precarious time, to say the least. We have declining capital gains taxes. There's delays because of the LA fires and collecting taxes, to say nothing of the impact of the federal government's decisions on what that means to California's ability to generate revenue. As well as what we'll see for things like Medicaid, incredibly important. And to say that we are white knuckling it would be an understatement. And every day things change. So we'll see. But we're very much focused on, protecting core services. We don't want to see so much of the work that we have done to improve the lives of Californians. And we all know that if we can prevent somebody from having their primary care be in the emergency room, we can really make a difference in healthcare overall. So we're really trying to hold on as much as we can to the expansion of Medicaid, and we'll see what happens. I just, it's not a fun position to be in. I didn't come up to Sacramento when there was a budget surplus anyway, so I always knew how to be lean. But this is something quite significant. So stay tuned. Which brings me to the. Do I have the VLF in here? No, that'll be a slide or two down. But let's talk just briefly about Proposition 4. I was proud to be a co-author of it. And it was the Climate Resilience Bond, a $10 billion bond. And it passed resoundingly, and there will be funds available. What I'm a little disappointed in is the governor has cut things out of the budget saying, oh, you can make up for it in the climate bond. Well, the climate bond was supposed to be in addition to things that we're doing from the California budget as it exists. So that is a little bit troublesome, but nonetheless, I think for purposes of things like San Mateo, where it has sea level rise concerns, there are dollars in there, and we tend to be very competitive for those dollars. One of the biggest issues as it related to the climate bond was that we had to make sure that when we were talking about underserved communities, so 40% of the bond is to go to underserved communities. But how do you define underserved communities? And we wanted to be very clear that underserved communities was going to be based on the median area income as opposed to the state median income. Because if we had done the state median income, this area would not have done very well, because what looks like low income in our area is very different than what it looks like in the Central Valley. So a lot of the competitive grants were based on area median income, and that was a deal breaker for me. And I'm very glad that that made it into the bond, because while we may look different than Bakersfield, that doesn't mean that we have needs that are any less. So I was very pleased about that. The bond passed with flying colors, and now it's being used a little bit as a bank for some of what the governor would like to see, but that's okay. We're going to, one step at a time, and hopefully we'll get there. Let's talk a little bit about the vehicle license fee and the reimbursement that comes back to this county. It's estimated to be $114 million this year. Last year was about $72 million. My first year in the legislature, it was about $32 million, or maybe $34 million, somewhere around those numbers. It's going to be difficult. I have a hearing tomorrow morning where I will testify on it. And I do believe the Department of Finance, that's the governor's side of things. As of now, it is a zero item in the budget. And so after the governor does his May revise, you can see what he's proposing, and then the legislature comes back in. Now, I got things like, we got the LA fires, we have this, we have that. But it does not mean that this county should be treated any differently than any other county. We certainly, we are a county that is successful in certain regards. We still are the land of the haves and the have-nots. And I'm going to fight quite vigorously for this money because I know I don't have to tell you that it's a part of your budget, it's a part of the county's budget, and I don't know how it's going to go. That's I have another meeting tomorrow on it as well. So I certainly contend we're entitled to the money, and but I could be as right as the day is long. You can't squeeze juice from a turnip. So but I feel quite strongly that this county should not be treated differently than other counties. And so we will get in there and fight the good fight. The rest of the delegation from this county is working very hard as well. It helps that Senator Wiener is the budget chair on the Senate side. So stay tuned. I hope that there will be something, because zero is not an acceptable outcome. Okay, so let's see. It is a top budget priority. Working with legislative leaders, I think went over all that, and we may need to get to a permanent structural solution. Senator Cabaldon, who represents Napa County, has introduced a bill that says you should just get it, and it shouldn't be a budget add-on at any time in the future, because of certain machinations. You know, the money that other counties get comes from a certain fund, and we don't have that fund by virtue of what we pay in property taxes. So Cabaldon has a bill out there. Of course, you need the governor to sign this bill. So let's see what happens. But he was a legislative staffer when this first came about, and he speaks to it quite eloquently. And I will be right there with him fighting the good fight on it. So let's see what happens. But I think we should be made whole, certainly. I love that you're changing the slide as you see me flip my papers. It really helps. So anyway, I'm committed to serving San Mateo County's interests in Sacramento, and I will be continuing to advocate for environmental justice, housing reform, public health, fiscal fairness. And I think, San Mateo, you've always been a leader in this county. When I served on the city council and I would go to county meetings or whatnot, they would say, oh, but San Mateo's already applied for that grant, or San Mateo's already doing this. And you've always led the way. And so it's a delight to be with you tonight. And I thank you for the opportunity. If you have any questions, I'm certainly willing to answer them. I forgot what you said, Mr. Mayor. Are you taking questions now? Okay, I know public comment was coming later, but that was all I remembered.
All right, who wants to go first? Any questions? Councilmember Diaz-Nash.
Welcome, Assemblywoman, and we are very glad to welcome you home. And I know you're out in the community doing engagement all the time. I think it would be really helpful to the residents to understand maybe an example or two of when community feedback has materially impacted what you've done or your legislation, or just given you inspiration to do something.
Oh, God, no, you got me. I mean,
No, you do
it's
it all the time,
related,
yeah.
certainly to community impact. You know, when the phones can start ringing off the hook about a particular bill, believe me, I hear about it, and I certainly take it into account. Trying to think.
Or maybe just how you use the process. Where does...
Yeah, so Mainspring is a linear generator company in our district. And as it turns out, they were not specifically listed as an acceptable form of green technology. And we were like, are you kidding? And they're a fantastic company, very green. So we were able to get them listed in what is an acceptable form of green energy, which will certainly help them in the future. So that was certainly a very constituent, very company oriented. And then we certainly did hear from PG&E when they had power outages across the freeway in East Palo Alto that we definitely had to intercede. And sorry, these ones are not at the forefront of my mind. I do have a bill that kind of came about actually from my own personal experience. And this was, you know, when you have you have your insurance carrier, medical insurance carrier, and they provide you a directory from which you can try to find a physician. Well, what we were finding was, not only myself, but other folks were finding that those directories were very out of date. And so you'd call, I'm not taking new patients, I'm not practicing anymore, I'm no longer with that carrier, we don't accept that insurance, whatever it was. So this just says in that directory at the top of every page, it says if you cannot find a medical care provider on this list, call the carrier. They have to respond within 24 hours, and then they have to find you a provider within 48 hours. Because otherwise, you may not feel well. You're trying to do all this legwork on your own, and they have out-of-date directories. Now, there is another companion bill that I'm not carrying, but that is to keep those directories current, and they have to be like 80-90% current by 2028, something along those lines. But anyway, you talk about necessity being the mother of invention. That was certainly something that I think is easy to do, and it will definitely benefit folks out there that are not well and looking for care, looking for assistance. So those are some of the ones that it's a little more immediate when you're sitting on the city council. If people come to you, I got a pothole, I'm going to have a cell tower or whatever that I'm upset about. This is a little less immediate. But
that's very important.
Oh yeah, definitely. We just had a town hall dealing with the fire zone maps, and people that are placed in fire zones are very concerned about what that means, how they have to fortify themselves or make their sort of hardscape around their homes. So it was very helpful that people could understand what that meant and how they need to protect themselves against fire. So
Great.
That was another very important one.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't think of it off the top of my head.
Councilmember Fernandez.
Assemblywoman, thrilled you're here. I just wanted to thank you so much because you had session today in Sacramento and you drove back for this.
I actually did not.
You did not?
No, I had to attend a funeral today. So
Oh, I'm
I wasn't able to go.
sorry.
That's why I'm here, because I just went too
we
long.
appreciate you being here in person.
Thank you. Yeah, I was excused.
And I just wanted to thank you for being here in person and just thank you for being a leader at the state. And as someone who works for Senator Becker in my day job, I get to see you firsthand and the leadership that you provide locally. So thank you for your advocacy.
It's my pleasure. My absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
I'll just quickly echo Councilmember Fernandez's comments to thank you for being here with us today. It is a special treat. And I want to thank Councilmember Fernandez for bringing up the idea to have a legislative briefing of this sort. It's a new thing that I hope we can continue in the future. You don't have to be here for each one, but thank you for your efforts with regard to pursuing a solution for VLF and generally your efforts to protect the have-nots in our county and our environment and more. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate you. And I don't have anything else to add, so I'll leave it at that.
That's
But thank you.
okay. I
Thank you
know
for-
I'll hear from you if you need anything. So please stay in touch. My
know how
local
to find-
staff is expecting to hear from you on any given item. So I wish you Godspeed. You're doing a great job, this council.
Thank you so much.
And shout out to Assemblywoman Papan's District Director, David Bruto, is here and staffing outside of regular business hours.
You know how that goes. Okay. Bye, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks again. Bye. All right. So now we're switching back to State Senator Josh Becker. Welcome, Senator Becker. You're muted.
All right. Hello. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you now. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, my team got me a fancy microphone, but I have to remember that it's on. Excellent. Well, thank you for the invitation to appear before you virtually and address the city council. Yeah, I think this is the first time I've had a chance to give this kind of update in San Mateo. And so, yeah, just excited about it and hope that we can continue the dialogue. A little bit about me, since we haven't done this formally, since you know I represent the 13th Senate District of 1 million people in most of San Mateo County and northern Santa Clara County, and I've been in the Senate since 2020, elected to fill the very large shoes of Jerry Hill, who I know was a legend, especially in San Mateo. And I appreciate Assemblymember Papan, my fantastic colleague, who I'm really just so enjoy that I get to work with. Appreciate that, her update. I missed the beginning of it, so if I'm redundant on anything regarding the budget, I apologize. A couple of pieces I do chair this year. I was selected to chair the committee on energy, utilities, and communications. So this is the first time a clean energy, former clean energy entrepreneur has been elected to this position. So really an important one, especially right now, as I'll talk about, because we're in the position of trying to advance our clean energy goals. And I do appreciate that the San Mateo Council has always been a huge ally in this effort, but to advance our clean energy goals while working to bring down utility rates, which have been a major cost burden on just on our citizens throughout our county and really throughout the state. So very tough task to do both of those, but we've got a bunch of big bills this year to work on that. I'm also chair of the Bay Area Caucus. So as that role, we have a caucus of 27 Bay Area legislators, and we get to work together. I love this caucus because it's our one chance to work collectively across the region on issues that many really are regional issues. When you think about transportation, when you think about traffic, when you think about housing and affordable housing, when you think about homelessness, these are really regional issues. And this is our chance to get together as a caucus and really dig in. And it's led to a lot of the work that I've been doing on unsheltered homelessness, ending unsheltered homelessness the last few years, passing a bill unanimously last year around interim supportive housing and defining that, validating that, setting some parameters around that. And we're back this year with a bill around functional zero. That's a concept that San Mateo County has embraced. And now we have the mayor of San Jose and the mayor of San Francisco also embracing this, which basically says that we can end unsheltered homelessness. We now know that we can do it. I think before, and even including myself, people viewed it as just an intractable problem that was a part of the landscape here in the Bay Area. And now we know we can end unsheltered homelessness. We have folks actively working to do it, and my job is really give them tools. And this most recent bill is really a planning document that really lays out, do they have they declared a shelter crisis declaration? Are they using Appendix B building codes? Really a whole checklist of things so we can move all of our cities to this goal of setting the goal of functional zero and to that goal of functional zero. So it's something I'm really excited about, very passionate about, very proud of, even though there's also a lot of work to do on that score. But those are the kinds of issues we get together and discuss as a Bay Area caucus. And I very appreciate the role of the San Mateo as the largest city in my district plays in, for example, in being forward thinking in terms of infrastructure like grade separations. We've done a couple of, I know we have more to do, but you did it when it was more, much less expensive to do than we're seeing now with some other neighboring cities. But when cities like San Mateo invest and do build housing, as I know you've got a lot of it on your agenda, that the state can provide infrastructure support for the city. And so that's what I'm really fighting for. We always say that California is a donor state. Well, our county and my district is really a donor district to the state. And that's fine, but we want to make sure that we get support back in the form of infrastructure, in the form of money for affordable housing, when we have many shovel-ready affordable housing projects across my district and across the Bay Area that are not getting funding from the state. And we have to find ways to fund that and making sure that we're doing it at a level of affordable housing that's actually affordable. Because what we're seeing is that things that are 80 to 120% of area median income in our area are really not affordable for many of the folks that we're trying to build affordable housing for. So we have to really take a deep look, I think, as a community, as a state, is what are the incentives that we're setting, and are we really going to reach our goal of affordability for teachers, for nurses, for firefighters, all these people that we say we want to be able to live in our community, and are we really, as a state, setting the right goals, and working with cities like yours in a rational way to make sure that we're moving forward in ways that are going to move the needle. So those are the kinds of issues that we address as a Bay Area caucus, and happy to discuss those more at a subsequent date. Of course, the governor's also announced some big initiatives recently around encampments very specifically, but in tandem with the $3.3 billion from Prop 1 to really focus on that mental health, behavioral health housing to help those who really need it. who really need it, and make up make up a portion of our homeless population, unsheltered homeless population, around 30 to 40%, and we have to make sure that we have that behavioral health housing. And so that was part of a big initiative that was announced recently. Without getting out to the wonky details of all my energy bills, so I know, Adam, for one, I'm sure you'd like to, but maybe others as well. I have one very large bill. It's sort of they're joking. It's the Opus bill, the one bill to rule them all. It's 9 bills in one around utility rates, and it's really the biggest bill we've tried in the legislature in a long time to really get at utility rates. Not that we're promising, we call it affordability, but also modernization. It's really about modernization, about how we do a utility rate making. And because we're going to see some benefit in the short term, but really it's going to be in the medium and long term that we're going to see those benefits from this legislation. And then we have to use our existing grid more effectively. So that's really what we call load flexibility, making sure those 20 hours, really our grid is stressed for 20 hours a year. So we spend billions of dollars building for those 20 hours a year. So how can we make sure we take load off the grid during those 20 hours, and then creating a regional grid so that when we have an extreme weather event, we can get geothermal from the south more seamlessly, wind and solar from the east, from Nevada and Utah, and that we can be part of this larger market. That's a big undertaking, and one that I've taken on this year. I'm trying a number of things that have been tried and failed, including what they call prior authorization. So if you've ever tried to get a medical treatment, and you have to go through what's called prior authorization, which is a way for health plans to deny care. It's just incredibly frustrating, incredibly damaging. The stats are just really horrendous when you think about the results of those denials of care that I can share with you. And so what we're doing is basically saying if a procedure has been approved 90% of the time in a given year, then you should not need prior authorization for that next year. It should just be approved. And so that's a big initiative. And this is, across the country, we're struggling with this, but this is a big initiative that I have working with the California Medical Association, that last year I worked with and passed a bill saying that these same health plans, they can't use algorithms to deny care, because they're basically just had these algorithms like, no, we're denying that. And I had a bill really leading the country saying that they can't be doing that. Happy to talk about anything else. I'll just mention one thing quickly, which really came from San Mateo County, been a pioneer, ALAS, the great nonprofit working with farm workers and the life sciences industry working together to create the Equity Express bus. We have farm workers who don't have access to transportation, who are out in rural areas, and their children who don't have access to medical care. And this is a bus that goes out there, has physical health, but also mental health and telehealth that's available in this bus. And it's really a model. And so we're trying to create a couple more of those across the state, but rather than asking the state to pay for it, actually setting a fund up at the Department of Treasury, so it can be a philanthropic investment that many people want to make, including in this area, and show that this model works, and build out a couple more in that way. And that was the winner of my Ought to Be a Law contest, and just really, really excited about that one, hoping we can get that through. 18 of my 20 bills have made it to this stage, which the appropriation stage, because the budget is so bad. And we have a 3-hour budget retreat as a Senate caucus yesterday, looking at all our options. But because the budget's so bad, a lot more things that may have even made it through, even have a tiny impact on costs, are going to get killed in appropriations. So I'm just hoping that my bills can make it through on the ones that some of the areas that we talked about, and move on to that next stage. So with that, just grateful for you having me.
Thank you, Senator Becker. We appreciate you being here today. Does anyone on the council want to go first? Deputy Mayor Lorraine.
Well, thank you very much, Senator Becker, for sharing a lot of what you're working on. Clearly, many bills, and I'll pause on indulging my wonkiness too much. But I guess, You know, I hope this isn't too gauche. I'm going to try something, and we'll see if it's not exactly right. But this is a new thing for us. First of all, thank you very much for being with us. And in addition to hearing what you're working on, and our other local representatives, the council may consider taking positions on certain bills. And one bill on our list from our lobbyist group is SB 63. And I was curious if you had any thoughts. This is Senator Wiener's bill about the local sales tax measure that might go to transit funding for Caltrain, BART, and more. And was curious if you had any thoughts as the council may consider it later on.
Yeah, I was literally just texting. I do chair the Bay Area Caucus, I mentioned, and we have to lobby both budget chairs in the Senate and the Assembly to get things done. And fortunately, Senator Wiener is the budget chair, and he's a big supporter of that one, obviously. But we're trying to generate a little bit more lobbying from legislators, to the chair of the Assembly Budget Committee on that bill. So I was just literally texting right before I got on this call. So yeah, this is a regional measure to support transit. Right now, San Mateo could be in it, opt in, or or not. Although more recently, I've heard more positive that people are more positively approaching the bill here in San Mateo County. But again, it is opt in. But we desperately need that money to support some of our transit agencies, including Caltrain. At the same time, we're modernizing and improving. Obviously, we just modernized Caltrain in a dramatic way and a very successful way. And, to a lesser degree, a lot of positive things happening with BART as well, in terms of the efforts made around newer trains, smaller trains, more security, the fare gates. And all of that is having an impact too for BART. We're seeing much better numbers there. And Muni as well, but Muni has, I think, 400,000 riders a day. And we don't want those 400,000 riders a day all of a sudden to be in cars, increasing our traffic. So it's a big one where there's some other nuances to it. But in our Bay Area Caucus budget letter, I can tell you that is near the top of the list, without revealing too much, maybe at the top of the list. So it's a really important one.
Thank you very much for your time,
in addition to, the bill itself, but really the funding in the budget to get us to that, right? Because we need money in the budget now to bridge us to that.
Indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Anybody else want to go? Councilmember Diaz-Nash.
Good evening, Senator Becker. Good to see you, and thank you for being with us. We earlier received an update on what's happening on the Assembly side from Assemblymember Papan with regard to VLF. Is there anything you can add to the conversation from the Senate side?
Yeah, we have a big meeting tomorrow. Again, fortunately for now, we have Senator Wiener as budget chair in the Senate, and he gets this, as well as our budget chair for the relevant budget subcommittee is Christopher Cabalden, and he was actually a staffer on the Higher Education Committee when this deal was first made. So he knows it very intimately, and he's been very supportive. So I feel like we've got really strong support, and with me chairing the Bay Area Caucus, very strong support on the Senate side. So I feel very confident of that. And I know that Assemblymember Papan has always been a tremendous leader on this, is working to rally support on the Assembly side as well. I will say, as part of that, I've been doing with my team, and grateful to Councilmember Fernandez as part of this, to really do some work as we say that, as I mentioned, that California is a donor state. We say California is a donor state to the country, and the Bay Area is donor region. Really, San Mateo County is a donor county because we pay a lot of income tax, and we're finalizing those numbers tomorrow. But also a lot of the services others don't get, we don't get, right? So like, there's $14 billion for community colleges, I believe, in the budget this year. But we don't get almost any of that money because, our colleges are basic aid. They're funded through local taxpayers. Most of our schools, not all of them, but most of our schools are basic aid schools. So We're contributing a lot to the general fund. We don't get a lot back in at least a couple of those areas, and the VLF is very important to us. So we have to make sure we get it this year, but then we have to solve it longer term as well.
Thank you. And obviously, anything we can do to support, we are there.
Yeah,
And I've got one other question. And you mentioned Caltrain earlier and the fact that we had been involved in grade separations. Right now, as you're probably aware, Quiet Zone is a very high priority in our city that
Yeah.
we've been working on for several years. And we really are, we understand that budgets are tight, but we really, from a safety perspective, quality of life perspective, want to get to being qualified to be deemed a
Yeah.
quiet zone city. And I know we'll be speaking with Caltrain about this as well. So anything that you can do to really lead the charge to help us, that would be really appreciated.
Yeah, thank you. And definitely been a focus of mine. I mean, ultimately, we need to get more of those infrastructure dollars and not just the operations dollars to make all that happen. And we need to get MTC. MTC, people may or may not know, that's our regional planning agency, to make sure they prioritize, the peninsula's needs. So we have a lot of little, conversations going on across all of that, because sometimes they prioritize things like, say, BART to San Jose, or Caltrain Extension to San Francisco. We're like, hey, we have a lot of infrastructure needs here. So it's a big issue. Menlo Park, where I reside as well. So I'm very sensitive to it and want to do whatever I can.
Great. Thank you so much.
Members. Councilmember Fernandez.
Just wanted to say thanks for being here, boss.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you, Senator Becker. We appreciate you being here. I guess I would just tap onto a few things that have already been mentioned. I've heard from some people with SB 63 that there may be concerns in that it's not equally dispersed, meaning we could be paying into it and we could opt to be paying in for it, but then we could see it go to another. Is there anything happening with that bill to make sure that there's some fair play, and that if you're opting in, that you're going to see some of it coming back into your community?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of those discussions happened last year, because there was a bill last year, which didn't, and that was one of the reasons that bill did not advance, because there was, concerns exactly as you outlined. I feel like that has been, is largely being addressed, but I'm happy to follow up with you to make sure it is.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And then as far as the other things, we appreciate your support with VLF, and to also add on to the grade separations. We passed Measure T here locally this past November. We are growing quite a bit, particularly in our transit corridor. And so, and no other city in the entire Caltrain transit system has as many at-grade crossings than the city of San Mateo. So
Yeah.
any support that we can get for that, to make sure that we're improving the quality of life for the new homes that we're building around the transit corridor, would be really appreciated.
Yeah, I hear you, and we're gonna have to continue. That's gonna be an ongoing fight. Even when Congressman Eschery, before she, she fought for infrastructure dollars when we had infrastructure dollars. When Biden had the infrastructure plan, and we fought for some of that. And Burlingame is also a big priority. That's a very, very dangerous intersection, as you probably know. But we got a lot of work to do up and down the Caltrain line.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Senator Becker, for being here today. We really appreciate it, and look forward to doing this again in the future.
Good. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to all the council members.
Take care. Have a great day.
Okay.
Thanks again. Okay, we'll continue moving along. The next up, we'll be hearing remarks from the Office of the County Supervisor, Noelia Corzo, and it'll be represented by her Chief of Staff, Jackie Rigoni. Welcome, Jackie.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor Newsom, Deputy Mayor Lorraine, Council Members Diaz-Nash, Svirko-Goditsky, and Fernandez, City Manager Kajikian, City Attorney Rasaya, Assistant Attorney Horsberger, Clerks Kayes and Eaton. Thank you for inviting Supervisor Corso to share legislative updates today. Also, thank you. Actually, you can advance to the next slide. Yep. I wanted to thank also Senator Becker and Assemblymember Papan, especially for their advocacy at the state level for vehicle licensing fees, which is hugely impactful on the county, and also to Senator Becker for addressing the question about SB 63, which I'll be touching on in a little bit. So as you can see, I am not Supervisor Corzo. I'm Jackie Rigoni. I'm a little bit taller than her. I'm her chief of staff. And tonight the supervisor is actually giving a graduation address at her alma mater, SF State. So I get to be here on her behalf. We wanted to share a few key updates that we're working on, but in the context of our district office's mission, which is to interrupt inequity, promote representation and belonging, and create lasting change that serves us all. Supervisor Corzo is committed to engaging in our shared community and being responsive to the needs here. We conducted the first ever district-specific strategic plan, which many of you participated in. And out of that became 3 top priorities, which are affordable housing, community safety and wellness, and equity, justice, and representation. As an update, we're making really strong progress on the goals, which you'll hear a little bit more on. And as part of that, we've hosted 26 cafecitos con Noelia with elected partners in our district, including each of you. So thank you for that. And that gives residents access to their representatives. We host monthly office hours throughout the district, bringing resources out to where people are, including at the King Center. We've hosted a well-attended Know Your Rights workshop for our immigrant residents in partnership with Faith in Action and San Mateo PD to share resources and assure folks that our local law enforcement does not use resources for immigration enforcement. We began hosting quarterly meetings with elected leaders in our district to collaborate on issues that impact our shared constituents, which Deputy Mayor Lorraine attended. Our next one is on June 18th, and it's currently located at the San Mateo Foster City School District office. Mark your calendar and look for more details, and we hope you can attend. And finally, we're going to be sharing a progress report on our strategic plan in the fall, and we're really excited to share more specific updates. One of the strategic plan goals was to create a process for establishing a family justice center in the county, and we're really excited to say that we're ahead on this specific goal. The county purchased 1510 Fashion Island Boulevard in San Mateo, which will be home to a new family justice center, and we expect to begin building it out in 2025 and have it open in 2026. A Family Justice Center is a multi-agency space that will provide resources for survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, elder abuse, and human trafficking. The vision is that when you open the door to the FJC, you open all doors to services, reducing the number of times that a survivor has to tell their story and the number of places they need to travel in order to get the support they need. The county just hired Peggy Sherbon to lead the Family Justice Center, so that's really exciting. Peggy brings the experience of actually having started a Family Justice Center from the ground up and serving as its director in Bonner County, Idaho, and she started last week to get that ball rolling. We look forward to hosting strategic planning sessions with community partners and hope you all will attend those as well, so stay tuned. You may be wondering, like the public is, about sheriff removal proceedings. At the May 6th Board of Supervisors meeting, the board adopted a resolution approving procedures for conducting a removal proceeding. The unanimous vote sets the process for implementing Measure A, which you probably know amended the county charter through December 31st, 2028 to allow for the removal of a sheriff by the board if it finds that there's cause to do so. Now we're at a point where the board may consider at a future public meeting sending the sheriff a notice of intent to remove. by a 4/5 vote. And a notice must include the alleged reasons for removing the sheriff and a date to appear at a pre-removal conference. The board has expressed its desire to ensure a fair and transparent process, and that's where we're at now. I'm glad this issue was raised. Transit agencies are facing financial challenges post-pandemic, as we heard a little bit through Senator Becker. Without additional funding, Caltrain and BART will be forced to make catastrophic cuts. The solution is a 2026 ballot measure, which is a proposed sales tax to fund transit operations and improve service. The authors of SB 63, the authorizing legislation, are working collaboratively with our county to write the measure in a way that works for the county. Supervisor Corzo actually serves on the San Mateo County Transportation Authority Board of Directors, and she's advocating for San Mateo County to opt in. We know we can't rely on the federal government anymore for anything, let alone funding for transit, and we can't let our transit agencies collapse. Supervisor Corzo believes that it's in our county's best interest to be part of the solution because our residents rely on transit every day. And in answer to your question, Mayor Newsom, state leaders have clearly committed that money will not flow out of San Mateo County, and that's not the intent of this measure. There needs to be a clear spending plan, and we think we can get that by participating productively in conversations with our state leaders. If you want, this is more for the public than for you. You know where to find us. If you want to stay updated on these and other initiatives that impact San Mateans, you can sign up for our newsletter or follow the supervisor at Sup Novelia Corzo. And as always, please reach out to our team if you have any questions or thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in. There we go. Thank you so much for coming in, Jackie.
Oh, happy to be here.
Would anyone like to go first? Start. Councilman. Becky.
I just want to say thank you for being here and thank you for the update from Supervisor Corzo and also for her partnership on the 10192. She's been very outspoken. She also lives in my district, so I just really appreciate that. And I look forward to our continued partnership. I've actually done a cafecito with her and it was a lot of fun and it was great to learn more about her. So thank you.
Great. And we look forward to partnering with you on that as well. Thank you.
Anything else?
Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm very excited about the Family Justice Center, very excited that it's in San Mateo in Councilmember Swerko-Gaditsky's district. And I also just want to thank, it's very apparent that Supervisor Corzo has a soft spot in her heart for District 2 and for North Central. So I just want to thank her for all of her dedication and leadership in my district in particular. So thank you.
Thank you.
That's it. Okay. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here. Did you? Oh, you did have something else. Okay. I thought you said no. Sorry.
No, just didn't want to go first. I want to share. But number one, Jackie, thank you for you being here, and please thank the supervisor for us. And I just want to underline how much we appreciate the emphasis on community engagement and outreach, because that's how we learn, that's how we partner, that's how we understand, how the community understands, how the supervisor understands. So thank you. And thank you to the staff as well.
Yeah, thank you. In fact, I was hoping you would ask me the same question about what kind of things come out of those cafecitos or community engagement that you ask of us.
Let me ask you that question. I'm really curious.
Yes. Many things, but one that comes to mind is one we hosted in the very beginning of her term in San Mateo, in fact, and a resident actually raised the issue of soft story retrofitting. And if you don't know what that is, soft story are the kind of usually apartment buildings that have the posts and can be very unstable in case of a large earthquake. And those tend to be renters would be the most impacted in case of a large earthquake. And so this resident brought up the issue, which we hadn't even heard of or didn't even know what it was. It's kind of an odd thing, soft story retrofitting. And we actually took it back to our Department of Emergency Management and worked with them on moving something forward to study how many of these exist in the county, and worked with them on submitting a federal grant to do that study. Now, with the federal cuts that happened, that grant went away, but it's still on the radar, and we're continuing to see where we might be able to fund that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Please continue.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you so much. Oh, yeah, please.
Yeah, I just want to thank you very much for being here, Jackie, and for supervisor's leadership, and particularly bringing a slide on SB 63 and indicating her position on it and what she's done to help educate others on how the county may be able to play a role in this regional effort.
Yeah, she's very passionate about that, and I know she would love to share more about that if you have any more questions or questions from the public on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you all.
so much.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay. And next, we are going to have a briefing from the California Public Policy Group, represented by Dane Hutchins. Welcome, Mr. Hutchins.
Hello, can folks hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, not sure if I'm going to be, oh, there it is. Okay, screen's being shared. Well, good evening, folks. Dane Hutchins here with the California Public Policy Group. I'm also joined by Jake Whitaker, who is our Director of Grant Services, and we're, as requested by City Manager's Office, we're going to do just a quick brief update on our grants offering as well, as it sort of coincides with our state legislative advocacy efforts. So go to the next page, please. So quickly, your representatives did a really fantastic job kind of outlining sort of the state of play and what's happening on some of these issues. So I may jam through some of these, but one of the narratives that we've seen emerge this year is really this notion of affordability for Californians. However, what we're seeing as it relates to local government is a lot of measures that seek to cap, delay, eliminate local mitigation or development-related impact fees as a barrier to housing. We've seen a lot of new state-funded mandates proposed with no offset in funding. And as you heard from your state delegation, the budget is tight, $12 billion deficit projected. And so, of course, it is a challenge when we see these new programs with no state funding to offset, because it's expecting local agencies to frankly do more with less. And so certainly you're vigilant about those. There's also new requirements making it more potentially more difficult to contract out for services. And so wanted to flag some of those major themes in and around affordability this year. Next slide. From a timing perspective, the governor just released his May revise last week. Our team pulled together a fairly comprehensive analysis of the May revise, including specific sort of highlights and notes specific to the city of San Mateo. That was sent to your staff actually this morning. The revise was on Wednesday, and we took a couple of days to really comb through it, highlight the opportunities there. And so this week and the following week, we're really jumping into sort of budget and all of the budget trailer bills that are coming out of those negotiations. And as you heard earlier, your lawmakers are constantly working on their delegation's behalf, and as are we during this time. Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to see the legislature pass whatever the deal comes, the full deal comes out of an agreed upon balanced budget on June 15th. The governor is going to sign that budget on June 30th to comply with constitutional requirements. Now, we anticipate, because of some of the tax delays coming out of the Southern California fires, that this is going to be more of a placeholder budget, and we're going to have subsequent budget trailer bills moving in the summer to try and augment when we have new updated cash projections in the third quarter. And then we'll roll right into the last month of session from August 18th to August 31st. September 12th. And then we have from September 12th to October 12th is when the governor will sign or veto legislation. Next slide. I won't go too far into VLF. Both lawmakers talked about that, but we'll go next here. 114 million. We feel, as I think Senator Becker alluded to, we feel really good that that we are making inroads on the Senate side. I think the Senate is very sympathetic to where we're at. The VLF side is actually calendared for tomorrow's budget subcommittee. Just a couple of weeks ago, it wasn't even going to be calendared, the VLF item. And so we are making considerable steps forward, just getting it calendared for tomorrow. Our team is going to be testifying in support, highlighting the impacts that not having VLF would have onto the city. That will be done tomorrow morning in Assembly Budget Subcommittee. And so we're working hard on that. We're also working with some of our labor partners on the statewide perspective to ensure that we're on the same page, actively advocating as a larger coalition about the impacts of this issue. Next slide. And thus far, the city is only positioned on two bills. The first one, both are Assemblywoman Papan bills. The first one is really going after ensuring that we are looking at it from a clean water perspective to ensure that feminine hygiene products aren't containing these sort of toxic chemicals that end up in the wastewater stream. And so from a water quality perspective, this is certainly something that has relevance to the city. And also, the member reached out and asked if we would support this bill. And this is something that she's certainly fighting for, to try and ensure that we have, clean water and also a public, certainly something with regards to advancing something meaningful in the world of public health. Next slide. The second bill, AB 650, this is a measure that the Assembly member also requested that we support, and actually we acted as lead support testimony on this measure. The bill provides additional time during our next housing cycle to give us a little bit more time to do the planning with HCD, to get our allocations earlier. And when we're going back and forth with HCD on our review for our housing element, the bill would require the HCD specifically cite and provide clear direction as to what areas of the law that they're citing when they say, okay, we want to make sure that you're making this adjustment to your housing element. I think one of the things that we've seen statewide, which is why we've seen a statewide audit now being conducted on the agency, is because a lot of local agencies across the state felt as though the goalposts were getting moved a bit and that they weren't getting clear direction, or they had multiple reviewers, which certainly caused delays. And when we're out of compliance, we're subject to builder's remedy. And so this bill is being sponsored by the League of California Cities, but the Assemblywoman really was pleased that the city was able to be a testifier in committee and have been working on this bill. So this bill right now sits in the Assembly Appropriations Committee. The chair of the Appropriations Committee is a co-author. And so we feel confident that the bill will likely advance to the Assembly floor and move over to the Senate. Next slide. So as I noted here on the slide, from our perspective, these are informational items only. The firm is not providing recommended positions, but certainly happy to answer questions on these pieces of legislation. But I know that we're also crunched for time, so I'll try to run through these as fast as possible to allow for time to answer questions. And so AB 306, this is a measure that as amended would still put really a temporary freeze on all new building codes effective, if it were to pass relatively quickly, effective June 1 of 2025 for 6 years. And also, as amended, requires that residential model home designs approved under existing standards continue to use those standards for future builds. It has been re-referred. It's going to be in the Senate Housing Committee as well as the Senate Local Government Committee. SB 79, one of the larger housing and land use bills around transit-oriented development. This bill gives a lot of the local land use authority to the transit agency, allowing them to be able to utilize their properties and bypass some of the Surplus Lands Act. One notable exception to SB 79 as amended is it does now require at least a portion, I believe it's 10%, those units actually be affordable units, which is certainly, I think, a positive step forward. We want to see not just market rate housing, but affordable housing, particularly in such an expensive area like the peninsula. And so that bill is quite dense, and we've provided a very detailed level analysis for your planning staff to review as well. AB 1026 by Lori Wilson. This bill, why I'm encouraged about this bill is that it's showing that there are other entities in this whole housing landscape that have skin in the game with respect to addressing our affordable housing crisis around the state. And so what this bill does is it provides new timelines and requirements for electrical corporations to energize and streamline their systems for energizing properties. And so oftentimes what we've seen, particularly in Northern California, is you'll have a development that is either built out and not energized, or the builder is not going to build until they can have guaranteed energization of that project. And sometimes these folks will just wait for years potentially. And so this is trying to sort of look at this from a different angle, and certainly is a different take on what we have been seeing. Next slide. Senate Bill 499 Stern. So this is a bill that has moved out of the Senate Local Government Committee. It's on the Senate floor, and what the bill does is it simply says that when there was a bill last year that passed that said for specified projects and for residential development that essentially all fees had to be deferred until the time of occupancy or certificate of occupancy was issued. What 499 does is it says that for certain projects, when you're talking about emergency services, that parklands and parkland facilities, if it's a dual use purpose, meaning that if it's a natural fuel break, if it's a facility that you're using for a cooling center, something of that nature, that those would be permitted under the safety provisions of the bill to be able to still collect those fees at the time of the permit versus waiting until the certificate of occupancy. Shifting gears to more governance issues, AB 259. This is the bill that would take the sunset date off of the remote meetings limitations of AB 2449, allowing some remote participation from council members. AB 339. This is a bill that would mandate that the local agency provide 120 days notice to any bargaining unit that is going to be for any sort of service contract, with that there is an analogous bargaining unit. Further, it permits the bargaining unit to invoke meet and confer standards and open up your memorandum of understanding for any reason under AB 339. And so certainly think that's going to be a challenge operationally. It makes it very difficult even for renewal of a contract that you currently have. And so that was a challenge. Next slide. Last one here, SB 63. We've talked about this one as well already, but this is the authorization to create the regional transportation group to raise infrastructure dollars. It allows the county to opt into this, and there are other provisions, and certainly have more information on that. Should folks want to discuss that as well. It's currently on the appropriation suspense file. AB 382 by Mark Berman. This is a slow school zones bill. It would allow for a local agency up until 2029 to adjust its speed limit all the way down to 15 miles an hour, but 20 miles or 15 miles per hour. After that, by 2029, the prima facie speed limit would be 20 miles an hour in school zones. And so this is in response to some fatalities that the member had in his district. It is currently on the suspense file. And I believe last but not least is Senate Bill 456 by Senator Ashby. And so this is one that would help exempt these muralists that we're now seeing all across the state from traditional contractor licensing requirements. So we can kind of promote beautification in our communities without having to have folks go through this really arduous process just for simply doing public art. And so there's no opposition to that bill, and it is moving forward. Next slide. City Manager's Office also wanted me to touch on the legislative platform and policy. And so one of the things that we're going to be doing now that we're on board next slide, is moving on and creating a full legislative platform and policy. And so the platform creates a helpful guide for communicating with various stakeholders. It allows the city to have a game plan. And so when we see these 2,500 bills that are introduced every year, having the city's goals and priorities stated for us allows us to effectively screen those bills and only bring the ones that really align with your platform and allows us to engage. It also allows us to have, if council were to say we're going to support this bill, it allows us to continue to throughout the process continue to engage on your behalf versus having to come back to council every time the bill's amended or every single time we need an updated position. So it really allows us to supercharge your advocacy on the state level. Next slide. Positions that you can take once the platform is established, sponsoring a bill, supporting it, oppose unless amended, meaning that you may want to go to neutral eventually, but if you can get, X, Y, and Z things worked out with the potential, with the author, so you would propose and oppose unless amended position. The goal would be then hopefully if you can secure those amendments to go to neutral or even potentially support. And then watch is really just more of an internal policy position where we're taking a look at it and saying, hey, we're not going to engage now, but should we see the bill maybe go this way or that way, but bring it back to council for engagement. So what we're going to be doing over the summer and the fall is going to be meeting with your departmental staff, really to do an assessment of, from a policy perspective, what are the things that are most important. Also trying to find time to meet with each one of you individually to understand your goals and priorities. And that really helps us shape the platform. The goal would be to have perhaps a study session in the fall to review a draft platform informed by those deep dive meetings, allowing council to then, during the study session, provide some more critique or more input. We would then come back with a revised platform, hopefully for adoption. The goal would be to have a fully adopted platform by prior to January 1 of 2026, thus allowing us to really just jump right in when the second year of the 2-year session starts. This is fine. We can skip this one. So I just went through all of it. So after looking at your current policy, we do think now the policy that really goes hand in glove with the platform. So the platform, think of it as sort of the vision that council has provided staff and by extension your advocacy firm. The policy is allows us how we engage. And so looking at your current policy, we think that we should maybe clean up some of the formalized legislative roles, do an annual review of the priorities, clarify some of what we can do during emergency or expedited actions, and then communication to full council. And so areas that we want to basically more explore would be really fully developing out your legislative platform, having more of a detailed emergency authorization criteria, explicit role for city staff and legislative consultants, council member discretion and caution. So saying, making sure if council members want to position perhaps on their own accord, that they do so in their capacity as an individual council member versus, saying that on behalf of the city as a whole. And so just making that clear. And then also creating a process for endorsing ballot measures as well. Next slide. And I'm going to kick it over to Jake for a quick recap, and then I believe that's it for us.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for your time. It's great to have a chance to speak to you all. So my name is Jake Whitaker. I'm the Director of Grant Services for CPPG. And so I oversee our grant research and grant writing consulting work. I have, over the past couple weeks, gotten the opportunity to start getting to know the staff at the city of San Mateo. You have some great folks working for you. And so tonight, just wanted to cover a couple of things, just looking at the outlook on grants. We've had a lot of headlines in the news on the federal side, and we're tracking all of that very closely. But just kind of keeping tabs on what our major sources of grant funding are. we've had the Assembly member and the Senator speak earlier today on the state of the state's budget. We are projecting that $12 billion deficit. But currently, I would say one highlight from the May revise is that there aren't really a whole lot left in terms of additional cuts to discretionary grant spending. A lot of the things that would have otherwise been cut have, to Assemblymember Papan's point, been funds shifted over to the climate bond. We have the climate bond rollout is going to start really in earnest once the fiscal year 25-26 state budget framework is adopted. So we're keeping tabs on all those different provisions of the climate bond so that we can make sure that the city of San Mateo has the opportunity to take advantage of those programs that are being funded through Proposition 4. We also have Proposition 1, the Behavioral Health Services Bond that was passed last March, and the first tranche of about $3.3 billion was just awarded for behavioral health continuum infrastructure projects. So that money is starting to roll out. It's going to start rolling out into communities and going towards projects. Additional funding will be coming up this year. So they are, I would say, doing a very expedited rollout of these funds to try to make an impact fairly quickly with those dollars. On the federal side, and you'll hear from your federal lobbyists here in just a bit, we're just tracking, what the impacts of the budget reconciliation and then the upcoming fiscal year 26 federal budget will be. I would say that so far we've seen that the level of bipartisan support for the investments in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the bipartisan infrastructure law, largely still intact. We haven't, we're still working through the process. The reconciliation bill is making its way through the House now, and we've had some headlines about that this week. But the president has started rolling out some of those programs again for competitive competitions. And then under the Inflation Reduction Act, we are seeing efforts to claw back funding by the current administration, and then efforts to sunset the clean energy tax credit provisions in the IRA, and some conversation around that as well. Next slide. So digging in a little bit further on the Trump administration, what we've been seeing are some pretty stark changes between the current president and the previous President Biden on federal grant making priorities. And so a lot of the day one executive orders and executive orders that have been issued since have targeted climate investments that were made under the previous administration. A lot of the disadvantaged community criteria, what some would call diversity, equity, inclusion principles, have been woven into a lot of these programs under the Biden administration. And so there's an effort to shift away from that. There's a renewed focus on investments in areas of persistent poverty under the administration. That is currently, the new definition of underserved is shifting back to focus on areas of persistent poverty. And also efforts through some of the things we've seen through the COPS office has, through DOJ, started reissuing some of their programs for their upcoming funding cycles in June with provisions about compliance with federal immigration enforcement and a mechanism to prioritize communities that, in their estimation, this is more of an administrative discretionary piece, to prioritize those agencies for funding over agencies in jurisdictions like California, where we are considered a sanctuary state. There have been some pretty aggressive efforts to claw back, terminate existing grant awards that were made under the previous administration or were in the process of being made. A lot of programs that were funded under the Inflation Reduction Act have been targeted for termination. There's ongoing legal challenges and disputes around a lot of these things. Things like funding through the Library Services Act, the Digital Equity Act, various different things where funding is going from the federal government to states and then into communities that are being targeted for termination. And then also the U.S. Department of Transportation doing a programmatic review and then project by project review for certain programs for pending award agreements, targeting things like projects that are exclusively for bicycle infrastructure and things of that nature. And so I would say we're navigating this first year of the Trump administration, and the dust is, there's a lot of things that are still up in the air. The dust isn't going to settle for a little while yet. And so our team is paying very close attention to what's going on in DC so that as opportunities arise at the federal level, when they are appropriate and when we feel like we have a good project for them, that we're able to speak to the new administration's priorities to advocate on behalf of the city of San Mateo for those grant dollars. Next slide. And so next steps in terms of getting our grant writing team plugged in with your team, we've been doing deep dive meetings with staff. I had a chance to meet with your Parks and Recreation team earlier today. Great folks you have in that department, and various others. We're looking at various opportunities right now through the state and federal government, vetting some, looking at some more closely in the coming weeks. And our goal is to develop a curated tracking list for each of the organizations that we work with. So we want to have, high priority opportunities that are going to have an impact on your community, that support projects that align with the city council's strategic plan and the organization's goals as expressed through the various planning documents and priorities that you all have developed. And so that is what we are working on, and I think we're getting pretty close to the end of meeting with each department and developing that curated list. And as I mentioned, we're exploring various opportunities with your staff, right now. So that concludes my presentation, and I'll pass it back over to Dane.
Well, thank you very much, Dane and Jake, for your presentations. We are running pretty short on time, so what we're going to do is have you guys hold on. We're going to spend 5 minutes or so with Mr. Gaines, and then we're going to open it up for public comment, and we'll circle back to questions, and we'll ask you questions at that point. So I hope you guys don't mind hanging out just a little bit, but I would ask Mr. Gaines to go ahead and begin. Thank you, Robert.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. It's good to be here this evening, and I know you have sat through many presentations, and as Henry VIII said to each one of his wives, "I won't keep you too long." So I'm with Smith Garson, and we have worked with the city of San Mateo for many years. Next slide. I just thought I'd run through very quickly and bring back some of the fond memories we've had. We've succeeded in almost over $500,000 in helping the city get a $500,000 WIFIA loan for the wastewater treatment facility, $1.5 million for Marina Branch, $850,000 for the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Community Center, also known as the Pool, which is, we only refer to that here. We made several trips to DC with the city and met with congressional White House staff and department meetings. And as you know, last summer, we brought the Army Corps of Engineers to take a tour of the Marina Lagoon, and we got a word of authorization for that, and we were included in the ACOE risk management study. Next slide. So what's happening in Washington, D.C.? And then I thought that what's really happening is we're dealing with executive orders, reconciliation, the president's budget proposal, and appropriations. Next slide. And in order to understand what's happening in Washington, you have to understand what these terms mean. And I know that many of you, of course, know what an executive order is. It's the full force and effect of law, but only as long as the term of the president. So the next president can come in and change these, since January 20th, President Trump's issued more than 220 of these executive orders, basically trying to legislate by fiat, therefore cutting out Congress and the judicial branch. So I only touch on a few of these that he has that may impact local government. He's in the, quote, radical and wasteful government DEI programs and preferencing. He's made a lot of regulatory reforms aimed at reducing the federal regulations, healthcare policies, including efforts to dismantle the Affordable Care Act, And he's abolished or defunded various departments and agencies. Next slide. And there's been a lot of talk about reconciliation. So what is reconciliation? Budget reconciliation allows for the expedited consideration of certain budget-related terms. In other words, it's the easy way to pass bills. One of the purposes is to affect the federal budget. I put in here that there has been talk. I was at a White House meeting where they talked about removal of the tax exemption for municipal bonds, which struck me as strange, because for smaller municipalities, offering municipal bonds handle and deal with massive infrastructure projects. And if you're not going to give the purchaser of the bond any tax break, why should they buy the bonds? Therefore, major infrastructure projects may come to a standstill. But the bottom line is you only need a simple majority to pass these bills. And that way you don't have to deal with the Senate's closure provisions or have a supermajority in the Senate of 60 votes, which the Republicans do not have. So you can pass it by a simple majority. And that's the purpose of this reconciliation/tax bill that's going through Congress right now. Next slide. You should all know about the president's budget request by now. His program cuts include the Department of Education, HUD, which is a major project he's focused in on, and the possibility of eliminating CDBG money. I put this in here to show that in FY24, San Mateo almost got $750,000 of CDBG money. So keeping the CDBG is a of major importance to the city. Home investment partnerships and retail rental assistance programs and other programs that the president's wishing to cut, of course, is cut back on NIH and NOAA, which only predicts the weather. And we all know that with there's no climate change going on. So why do you need people to predict the weather when it comes to massive tornadoes that sadly are cutting through the Midwest right now? Fires, I need not tell you about fires or earthquakes. But in other parts of the country, they have massive flooding. So without having NOAA predict the rainfall or the weather, why worry about the outcomes in the world? And Energy Efficient and Renewable Energy Office, they're going to 75% cut. Next slide. If program cuts aren't bad enough, the president's budget request also cuts agencies. Non-defense agencies, a 22% cut. The Interior Department, 30%. Labor, 30%. HUD, 44%. And the National Science Foundation, 50%. But there's good news because the Defense Department will get a 13% increase to over $1 trillion. The next slide. So the president's budget request has major impacts, could have major impacts on local governments. That they would possibly increase homelessness, worsen the housing crisis, reduce essential services like police, fire, and would impact mostly on vulnerable communities. Next slide. Just to remind you all that the city submitted several earmark requests in 2025. Lakeshore Community Center, all three the delegations put in for that particular request, along with Marina Lagoon dredging. Lakeshore was in the bill, was going to be funded, but of course Congress didn't pass a budget, so all the earmarks went down the drain. The reason that Marina Lagoon didn't get funding was because the House Energy and Water Committee decided they weren't going to fund any energy and water projects. So that fell on the cutting room floor. Next slide. In 2026, which is the current year, the city's made 3 more requests. Real-time information center, which is the police department request for $550,000. We've resubmitted Lakeshore Community Center at $2 million. And we submitted a flood risk management study to the Senate. Senator Schiff and Senator Padilla bypassing the House Energy and Water Committee. So if we can get that in the Senate bill, then the Senate and the House will have to reconcile and either fund those projects or not. Next slide. So what to expect? Well, reduce federal funding for social programs, reduce funding in earmarks. That's why we asked for 2 million, trying to get 1 million. The House again has said they'll have no New Start water projects. CDBG reduction, we're going to fight that along with all the U.S. Conference of Mayors, National League of Cities, etc. And I think what really affects the constituents in San Mateo and everywhere else is that there'll be less federal personnel presence to help people with Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security HUD issues, because you won't be able to find an office to go down to. So if you're not computer literate, you're at a disadvantage. And calling on the phone won't get you anywhere because these people have been furloughed or laid off. So it's going to be much harder to get answers to these types of social issues. Next slide. And that is my upbeat report on the federal government. And I thought I got it in there pretty quickly, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Gaines, for your expeditiousness. And we're now going to open it up to public comment. Deputy Clerk, do we have requests for public comment?
Yes, Mayor Newsom. As of right now, I have 4 requests to speak in chambers. If you are participating virtually and wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand now.
Okay, and just a reminder, this is only for public comment of the special session.
Mayor Newsom, we have a total of 6 requests to speak, 5 in chambers and 1 virtually. Per our rules and procedures, each speaker will have 3 minutes.
Actually, let's cut it to 2.
2 minutes.
If that's okay, Council? Okay, yes, 2 minutes, please.
Each speaker will have 2 minutes. If I call your name, please line up to my right. Our first 3 speakers will be Robert Whitehair, Max Mountner, and Rick Bonilla.
Good evening, Mr. Is that on?
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm really happy to see you discuss Senate Bill 63, but I'm here tonight to ask you to take a position in opposition to Assembly Bill 306. When 306 was first presented to a lot of us advocates in both housing and electrification, we were told that it would speed up construction. I want to give you a little bit of perspective. It would speed up construction in Southern California, specifically in Altadena and Pacific Palisades. I want to give you a perspective. I grew up in Southern California, so did Terry. Terry literally grew up over the hill from Altadena where all the fires were. A lot of the construction in Altadena and Pacific Palisades was built in the 1920s, 1930s, and 1940s with very different building codes, if they built it with building codes at all. All that was built with asbestos was allowed, lead was allowed. There was no seismic bracing. You heard earlier about soft stories, a lot of soft story construction. That is going to be a very expensive construction in Southern California and other parts of the state when that has to happen. Electrification is not the reason. I'm very disappointed that Assembly Bill 306 will call for a so-called temporary moratorium on electric construction for 6 years, which will put a real serious dent in all the fine work San Mateo has done, and it'll put a real serious dent in what everybody else has done. It'll kill reach codes. That 6 years so-called temporary measures won't be really temporary. That's the end. And San Mateo has been a leader in electrification. Please take a position in opposition to Assembly Bill 306. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Max Mountner.
Hi, Council. I'm Max Mountner, San Mateo resident. I'm sorry I'm dressed so informally. I decided to jog over here, try and beat the congestion. Saw the congestion on 92 going eastbound. Pretty bad. So I'm here to ask you all to support SB 63, Senator Scott Wiener's regional funding measure that would help bridge the gap in what is a massive structural funding deficit for Caltrine and BART. I really don't care what the agencies' names are. I really am a direct beneficiary of all the transit agencies in the Bay. I ride Samtrans several times a week. I rely on Caltrain to get to my workplace. In a one-car household without Caltrain or BART service, which I rely on to visit my senior parents, I would be in bad shape. My household would be in bad shape. We would probably get a second car, and I don't think anyone wants that. So this is a pretty straightforward measure. It's one of those ones where I think it makes sense for San Mateo to act as a part of the region and opt into this measure. I don't know all of the history here, but I know I've ridden BART since I was a little kid. I've ridden Caltrain since I moved to the peninsula. And I know that this structural deficit isn't limited to BART. It's hitting Caltrain, it's hitting Samtrans as well. So I think this is a really straightforward one. I know this was also mentioned, but the Senate bill that Scott Wiener's drawing up for legalizing housing around transit centers further is really helpful, and I would ask that you support that as well. I myself am a beneficiary of previous Senator Wiener's bill, AB 2097, which allows me and my family to stay in San Mateo by not having to adhere to the single-family home R1 parking minimums, thanks to us being within a half mile of Samtrans ECR. So yes to transit, yes to housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Rick Bonilla, followed by Jordan Grimes, Michael Sibilia, and in our virtual environment, Adina Levin will be our last speaker.
Thank you very much. Good evening, all of you city council members and mayor. My name is Rick Bonilla. I'm the former mayor. Thank you all for being here and listening tonight. I'm here to, and by the way, 2 minutes, wow. Okay. I'm here today to stand up for saving and improving transit in San Mateo County and the region. SB 63, authorizing legislation for regional transit funding measure, is essential to maintaining, improving, and continuing to provide quality transit to the people of San Mateo and San Mateo County. The transit that we have here must be connected to the rest of the Bay Area, and it must be seamless, convenient, affordable, and coordinated. We don't have those things now. I personally use Samtrans, Caltrain, BART, and my bike. All of those methods of transportation must be invested in, maintained, and improved because the public will be increasingly needing and demanding these alternatives in the future. To make this work, we have to have free transfers, discounts for low-income riders, and coordinated surface and paratransit. I strongly urge the council to support a gross receipts tax, not a regressive sales tax. This places the burden on those who can afford to pay. Far better than a sales tax because it puts that burden where it will actually raise money to do the work. So I also support all of Assemblymember Papan's bills that we saw up here on the screen tonight. And I oppose strongly AB 306, the anti-reach code bill, which is a huge legislative overreach trying to, create untenable situations throughout the rest of the state in order to try and get some construction done in that one part of the state, small part of the state. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Jordan Grimes, followed by Michael Sibilia.
Good evening, Council. As you're considering legislation this evening, I'm here to ask for and encourage your support on SB 63 and SB 79. I don't want to be repetitive since I know we've heard quite a bit about SB 63 already, but I'll just say that I understand the concern about ensuring we get our fair share of revenue. I think everyone agrees with that, and we should. But I'll note that many people, myself included, use multiple systems crossing multiple counties at a time. And we all need to essentially sink or swim together. On SB 79, as we know from True North surveys, the dearth of affordable housing in this city, as well as homelessness, remain the top concern of San Mateans. While I'm proud that we passed Measure T and that our city is really beginning to do its part after 30 years of maybe not so much doing that, the reality is that we cannot solve the housing crisis on our own. We have not seen the same actions taken and the same commitment to solving that crisis by many of our neighbors. This is a regional and statewide challenge, and SB 79 is a smart and targeted way to ensure that everyone is held accountable. This bill is not a one-size-fits-all mandate. It's thoughtfully tiered based on the capacity of local transit systems and geographic realities. When it comes to inclusionary zoning, as was mentioned, and affordable housing, the bill defers to cities to let us set our own limits. And it offers a local TOD alternative plan as a housing element amendment to ensure that good actor cities are truly committed, and cities that are truly committed to building housing and are willing to prove that have alternative options. And then the bill only affects a narrow slice of our city, about 1.5 square miles, or roughly 12% of our land area. It touches D1, D2, D3, and D5, but not D4. There's a very focused impact for a potentially transformative benefit here. On this final note, as our lobbyists have shared, affordability is the word of the moment in Sacramento.
Thank you.
I'd urge our city to be part of the solution as well.
Thank you. Our next speaker in our virtual environment, Adina Levin. Please unmute your mic.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Adina Levin with Seamless Bay Area and Friends of Caltrain, speaking along with several other public speakers, and also glad to hear from Senator Becker and Supervisor Corzo in support of SB 63. As San Mateo County is making its decision about whether to opt in, and as the senator and supervisor talked about, really kind of edging toward and starting to lean toward opting in, having the voice of the city of San Mateo will be helpful in that regard. The city's housing goals, the city's climate goals, city's equity goals depend on having our public transit system continue to run and to make sure that we don't have, serious cutbacks to Caltrain and BART service that would take away from those goals. The other thing that the bill does is fund continued progress on well-coordinated and affordable transit. On the 28th for Affordable Housing Month, there's an event at Kiku Crossing, which is an affordable housing community near the Caltrain. That's one of the pilot participants of the Bay Pass and all agency transit pass that increased transit ridership by 40% in its first pilot phase and provides more mobility for people in affordable housing universities and better increased transit use amongst employers. So the agencies are looking out for Sam Transit interests, so the city support will help show that interest. Also would encourage support for the budget ask for transit to keep transit running until funding would come from a regional measure, and Assemblymember Papan's AB 1250, a good bill for paratransit, where people that have a permanent disability don't have to requalify if they have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Newsom. That concludes public comment.
Okay, we are definitely in overtime. So let's open it up to the council for questions and comments. Who wants to go first? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Through the mayor, and thank you to everyone who came out for this item tonight, and particularly to our electeds for giving briefings to CPPG. Quite a lot to go over, and it was great. I want to cut to the chase, given that we're in overtime. I had asked staff some questions, CPPG some questions about some of these bills. I recognize that we have a legislative committee platform policy in the future in which we'll get to do this, I think, on a more robust level. So I'm not going to touch on anything and everything that might be interesting in the city of San Mateo tonight, but I do think, based on some of what we've heard from constituents and from our supervisor and more, I would like to ask the council if it would like to support SB 63 and oppose AB 306 tonight. I can give some quick thoughts on why. I feel like we've heard a lot. For supporting SB 63, I just feel like, to me, what that says from the city's perspective is we're giving voters the opportunity to vote on this later. It's not committing much more than that. I've heard, I remember hearing a lot of folks in the room upset over 10192 the other day, saying we ought to be investing in transit instead of highways. To me, this is an opportunity for the city to share that it is in fact interested in future funding for transit. We heard about some of the shortfalls, hundreds of millions of dollars for Caltrain and BART in the future. And just a fun fact that I heard, twice as many folks in the county take BART over Caltrain. So I know, as someone in San Mateo who takes Caltrain primarily for day-to-day commute, I might not think that. I didn't think that at first, but BART is very important to San Mateo County, and we need BART to be working well. Others have mentioned taking it across other jurisdictions. If we're serious about the type of growth that we are projecting through Measure T and our general plan, and we're already seeing a number of developments, we're going to need to support things like this and step up and be part of a regional effort to ensure that everybody can commute in a sustainable way. So that's my pitch on SB 63. On AB 306, I believe I understand the spirit behind the bill is to allow for expedited rebuilding of thousands of homes in the LA area without potentially burdening them with new building code restrictions. But this seems to be painting all REACH codes, including the REACH codes that we have brought forward very thoughtfully over multiple years, with too broad a brush and unfairly singling them out when we know that housing is expensive and difficult to build in California for a number of reasons, as Robert Whitehair mentioned in comment. There surely must be a better way to facilitate building affordable housing without sacrificing these efforts to make our buildings cleaner, safer, and more resilient in cost-efficient ways. And I do want to highlight that too, because when I looked at some of the language of the bill, it seems to be assuming or claiming that these REACH codes are, not being checked for how much they might add to the cost of building, and et cetera. But we in San Mateo, when we've been working on our REACH codes, they have always been found at the state level to be cost effective when we move ahead with this. So we were anticipating, of course, the opportunity to build on that success this year with a suite of potential measures, including Electrify San Mateo, which we're currently getting public input on. And a decent amount of that would be negated by this bill. So I'm aware Peninsula Clean Energy has sent a letter of concern. Cal CCA is opposing it at this time. And I would like to see us take an oppose or oppose it if amended, unless amended. Thank you.
All right. Does anybody else want to weigh in?
I think I'd like to hear from the rest of the council on this one. I think this was a legislative update, and I need to learn a little bit more before I could adequately weigh in on both of these right now. It doesn't mean I won't. And I totally appreciate your comments, Adam. But yeah, I think I'd like to hear from everybody else too.
Councilmember Diaz-Nash.
Yes, I think we need to learn a lot more. And thank you to everybody who did the updates. There was a lot of information there. I know a little bit more about SB 63. And I would prefer to let our negotiators continue to work on it, because there's a lot of discussion happening as to how are we going to audit, how are we going to make sure that the money, if it's spent, is spent appropriately. So I would prefer to take no position at this time. And I just don't know enough about AB 306 to take a position at this time.
Okay. Councilmember Fernandez.
I would ask my colleague to separate the motions for a motion for each bill, please.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So do we want us to just do a call? Or, sorry.
So you have now two different motions, but there's only been, the motion has just been made. There's no one has seconded either motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Well, do you want to specify which
All
bill?
right, let's sorry, slow down a little. I'm going too fast. We're going to break this up into taking a position on State Bill 63. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Okay, I will make a second. Then I will ask for a call, a vote. And I guess the position could be yes, no, or no position. Is that accurate?
Well, the maker of the motion should indicate that, what is can you articulate further what the motion is?
To support SB 63.
Okay, well then the call will be to either support or not support.
Through the
SB
mayor, am I allowed to do that? I just don't feel that we have enough information to,
Okay, well then that is a no vote for now.
well, I'm not, I want to be clear, I'm not taking a no vote. I just don't feel that I have enough information to make a decision one way or another.
But through the mayor, there's a second, so you have to vote yes or no.
Okay.
If I can chime in here. So
Sure.
you're free to state sort of what your no vote means, but the motion is to support SB 63. And you can certainly explain it, but right now the council is to sort of vote one way or another on the motion.
So, I mean, a no vote can simply be that we're not voting, you're not voting yes today. That doesn't mean you won't vote yes in the future. Is that accurate?
Sure. I mean, voting no today does
I
not
just want to be
prevent
clear, I
you to-
haven't voted. I haven't said
Sure.
anything.
I mean, if regardless of how any of you vote today, does not prevent you on taking a position in the future, perhaps after you learn more information.
Okay. Who wants to go first? Just roll call? Call roll.
All righty. Deputy
Thanks.
Mayor Lorraine,
Yes.
Mayor Newsom,
No.
Councilmember Fernandez,
No.
Councilmember Sverko-Wadiki,
Yes.
Councilmember Diaz-Nash.
No.
Okay, motion does not carry, 3-2.
Okay. And can you make the second motion?
Yes, I would like to move that the city council take a position opposing AB 306.
Second.
Thank you for the second. Can we please call roll?
Deputy Mayor Lorraine,
Yes.
Councilmember Fernandez,
Yes.
Councilmember Sverko-Wadiki,
No.
Councilmember Diaz-Nash,
No.
Mayor Newsom.
Yes.
Motion carries, 3-2.
Thank you. Okay, well, that will conclude our special session. Thank you for all of your patience. We're going to take a 7-minute recess and reconvene at 7:30. Thank you.